some very key reforms, from infrastructure investment and removing internal tariffs to having some external tariffs to making sure that the financial system is working. And on education, something that has been missed by, again, more perhaps Western-oriented economists, not necessarily all of them, is the importance of child health care. We've had Modi has had national deworming days twice a year for the last couple of years. And deworming is perhaps the most maximum return on investment of any public policy intervention you can think of, because it makes sure that children are not stunted, their IQ is not stunted, not just physically, but their IQ as well. And therefore, their productive capacity for the rest of their lives is normal. As opposed to if you miss out in this particular age group, then they are basically disadvantaged for life. So we've had really important interventions, and a lot more needs to be done, especially on judiciary, on police reforms, and so on and so forth. But we have to think of Indian economics right now when we are $2,000 per capita income, as opposed to America, which is a $60,000 per capita income, in terms of first having a functioning, effective, where centralized required, where decentralized required, non-corrupt state. Only then can we go towards big discussions of free market economics and free trade, which will also be required, but at a later stage of development. So it is not about saying that Western economics is wrong and Indian economics is right, but it is about understanding what is right at what stage of development. Sanjeev Sanyal, a friend, a guide, a mentor, he once tweeted a very interesting thing. He said, China, Japan, maybe South Korea have been the big successes of the last few decades as far as economic growth is concerned. But where are the famous Chinese economists? You hear of so many famous Indian economists. And if economists are somebody who would love empirical research, they should ask, why is the country that is producing so many influential economists apparently not doing relatively well on economic growth itself? That is because Indian economists, for whatever reason, I don't want to use loaded terms like maculite, but there is a colonial hangover. We were good at English or whatever, and we kind of gelled well into Anglo-American universities, got professorships there, and sitting there, we used to give policy advice for free back to Delhi. And unfortunately, for some very well-meaning people also, Delhi is kind of like a 2-year posting when they go back to their universities in the UK or US. And I think eventually we'll have to come to a system where there is some skin in the game. I'm not saying let's not be open to advice from all over the world, but once you're living here, you understand the peculiar problems of this place perhaps better, despite your best intentions. So I want to conclude by again discussing that concept of Matsya Nyaya. The concept of Matsya Nyaya is that you need a functioning state, so that when a big corporation has a contract with a small individual entrepreneur, the big corporation cannot delay payments forever because there is a functioning judiciary to take recourse to. That's what a functioning state is about. Often in India, we speak about certain castes or communities dominating businesses. That might be for historical and social reasons, but it is also because of the lack of a functioning state. When there is less trust and less social capital and less recourse to a functioning state, people end up dealing amongst their own kind. So we need to think in terms of administrative, judicial, police, broader economic reforms, and not just narrow liberalization, which is also important. There has to be a focus on physical infrastructure, on human capital, on trade and manufacturing, over and above simply privatizing Air India and having labor market reforms and land market reforms.